And well, good afternoon. Something very unusual for the Town End to say. You're very welcome to the Town End podcast. It's season 3, episode 26. Well, this gives us a chance, I suppose, to look back over last night's defeat to Bohemians at Dalymount Park, where 2 late goals seen Dundalk throw away all 3 points. To go through the game with us, I have Kieran Callan here. Kieran, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. I can be called a foreign correspondent on this one, I think.
Excellent. Look, normally we're only coming from the shores of America, so this is good. We're branching out across Europe. So I appreciate that, Kieran. So, as I say, it's not something we normally get to do, Kieran. We're normally in the heat of the moment, straight after a match to give our thoughts on this. I suppose now that the dust has settled, what's your overall feelings on the result last night?
You can't not but say that you're not disappointed. I thought that we were in complete control of the game, particularly for large periods of the second half. I thought our game management was excellent. Once again, a concession of an early goal saw an excellent reaction, and I thought that Dundalk played extremely well for large periods of the game, but it was just seems that when we did that equaliser kind of came very, very late in the game, it just kind of very, very quickly unravelled. Our shape and our composure kind of went out the window as we kind of went chasing for a winner. Look, it was a game that was plenty of incidents. It's going to have a huge bearing, I think, by the end of the season. I did say this last night in my match report. It's going to have a huge bearing when it comes to European places. I think at about 78 minutes, I shot everybody, and everybody can shoot me in the foot in a couple of days' time when they hear this. But I sent a message into a WhatsApp group saying, as things stand, Dundalk are currently third. And then 2 goals were conceded. So I really shouldn't have done that. I kind of tempted fate a little. Yeah. But at the same time, it goes to show you how you know this league is at the moment. And I know Brian Gartland spoke about it this week on a podcast with Gavin McLaughlin, where I think he went home and he spoke to his wife Brona, and he said, we won tonight, and where does that put you? Well, it puts us in fourth, but you were in fourth. But yeah, it shows that how tight it is in this league this year. And it seems that if you get on any kind of sort of run at the moment, you find yourself climbing up that table very, very quickly, because the only way you could describe this league this year is inconsistent. And everybody's performances have been inconsistent. And, it is going to be a case, whoever gets a run in the last kind of couple of weeks is going to really, really do well. But I think between the points against St. Pat's, the point gained against St. Pat's, obviously the 3 points against Shamrock Rovers, but if we had gotten that win last night, there would have been a real momentum. Now, never mind Europe. Let's just park Europe for a second. Yeah. You want to be floating around that near 3rd to 4th place position come season's end. Bows now have those games in hand, which could shove us down nearly into 5th, and that's where it's concerning. So that's kind of my long-term viewpoint, and that's why I found last night very disappointing. We were, as I just go back to my original point, we were in control, and it just unraveled very, very quickly. And that's something that, once again, we know that this is a very young squad. It's something about seeing games out and game management that's something that is gained with experience. And at this moment in time, this side, some of the players just don't have that at the moment. But that will come in time. And last night will be a big telling lesson for those players.
Yeah, I think, to go back into last night, and straight away when I seen the team sheet come in and I seen Robbie McCourt not in there, like we've seen probably that back 3, back 5 that Skip has used over the past while, and we got real positive results out of that. Probably our best performance against Shamrock Rovers, and Robbie McCourt probably playing one of his best games also for Dundalk. So that's a bit of a hammer blow as well, that he's unavailable. Suddenly we're reverting back to a different formation because we just don't have the personnel. Me and you were talking off air then as well, just about the bench. There's Mayoa is coming back in then as well. A couple of young lads on the bench. It's a mix and match. He's got some real great experience in O'Kane, Martin and Lewis, but then probably some real inexperience further down on his options. So it kind of tells you when a key personnel, when we lose out of them on the starting lineup, maybe Skip just hasn't got a like for like replacement sometimes. And that's definitely the case on the left-hand side, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, like left-sided footballers are a rarity in themselves. Never mind one in a defensive position. And it goes to show you that like Robbie McCourt last year, he had a very torrid start to his Dundalk career. You know, it was hampered by injury, then suspension. He never got a run of it. And then this year, you know, he came in with an injury, and then all of a sudden he comes into a side in a position that suits him. And all of a sudden, like, we're starting to see the benefits of Robbie for this football team. And I know that Stephen was very highly praised of him and really was committed to him. And it's just unfortunate that once again, injuries seem to hamper the progression of the side as a whole, because I think for the first time in a long time, Stephen has adopted a formation and a style of play that suits the players that he has. And sometimes you've got managers, and I'm not pointing fingers at it, but they sign players for the sake of it, as opposed to what Stephen did and what Stephen Kenny did and what Vinnie Perk did to a degree, and what Stephen O'Donnell is doing, is that they have got a fixated, you know, they've got a not a fixation, but they have a set idea of how they want this team to play, and they find players in order to suit that kind of instead of putting the square peg in the round hole, so to speak. And it's just because of the fact that there's a hampering of injuries and we're not getting, once again, that word is going to come in a lot now, of consistency that would see us get a run. We finally got that run in the past couple of weeks. It looked like we were really getting there, and then all of a sudden, but you know, we've got a new player coming in. He's signed from Partick Thistle. You know, that's another defensive cover that maybe we've kind of been wanting, you know, since we've lost both, you know, we've lost Wazir Williams and Robbie McCourt's injury. So that in itself is going to be a big boost, because we don't know how long Andy Boyle is going to be out either.
Yeah. And then I suppose, Kieran, the game starts, and unfortunately, and the one thing Skip's trying to knock out of this team is allowing teams to get the upper hand early on us. And for the first 15 minutes of that, we weren't really in this at all. We were letting Bows dictate the pace of the game, and it's not surprising that they did take the lead.
Well, I think also
Afolabi involved again against us.
But it was almost as if they had seen what we had done against Shamrock Rovers last week and went, okay, let's see what they're doing and see how they can contain a high press. And essentially during the first kind of 5 to 6 phases of attack and play, it was all Bohemians. You know, Nathan Shepherd was forced into an early save earlier on in the game, and then they got their goal through James McManus. But once again, it was Afolabi who was playing that kind of very much on the line last kind of attacker. But what he was doing was that he was pulling out wide on a consistent basis, which allowed the midfield to kind of pack into that kind of central role, which meant that Dundalk were very stretched at the back, and they weren't able to kind of manage the game as well as they would have. And then the concession of the first goal was basically Afolabi getting the ball on the byline. He crossed it in. It missed the first player, and there was James McManus, who just finished his leaving cert this week, was there on hand to. But the thing about the McManus goal that kind of maybe a little bit frustrated me was, and I know it's all very well in hindsight, he was able to take a touch before he took a shot away.
Yeah,
like really, that should have been just an opportunity where he just had he had to take it first time. He wasn't able to do. He was able to take a touch, look up, see where Shepherd was, and take the shot. Like that's criminal on a penalty at a penalty spot. And I know that the players kind of were they were running towards the goal and stuff like that, but they should have been able to see the runners coming in. And that's
that's it. I think we get completely sucked into the ball. Everyone's watching Afolabi's run, and I said to you there off air, Kieran, like that was nearly carbon copy of the second goal Bo scored against us earlier in the season, where Afolabi just runs to the byline and cuts the ball back, and there's players tapping the ball inside the box. This time, like I say, everyone gets sucked towards the ball. Louis Anzi actually loses his footing trying to reach that ball with his toe. He ends up on the ground. It misses the first Bows player, but as it runs through to McManus, he has the time to take the touch. Players are now turning their backs to get around to where he is, but it's just too much time. Yeah. There's nothing the keeper can do. He's trying to guess what side Shep's trying to guess what side this is going and picks one, but it's all in favor of the attacker at that stage, and we're behind yet again. That's what 17 times now we're gone behind in games.
But also we're now with about, I think, 11 to 12 games left in the season. We've conceded more this season than we did of all of last year, which in itself is something that it's an alarming statistic. That once again, now I'm going to praise the defense in a little while, because there was some good defensive play. It's not all kind of pointing fingers and stuff like that, but it's these kind of moments. This is the kind of game that in reality these players will learn more from than any win against Shamrock Rovers or Drogheda or anything like that. This is the game in which they will have to look back and say, right, what did I do individually wrong in this phase? And because Bohemians, they were not on a good run at the time. They were really, really struggling. And for us to allow them to have a 15-minute purple patch, which was just a bombardment of attacking phases of play in the first opening period of the game, which resulted in a goal. It's not like they have to settle quicker, because this is the reason why they're conceding goals very early in games, is because they're not settling into the game as quick as other teams are, home and away. Yeah.
I suppose then, Kieran, like I say, we wouldn't be massively critical without giving some sort of praise as well, because somehow we also managed to, after going behind, battle our way back into games. A player who definitely over the recent change in formation seems to have flourished a whole lot more is Johannes Yuli-Kuku. Now, when initially when I seen the goal, I was at United Park last night, at Weavers Park, when I seen the halftime highlights, I was like, wait, who the heck was that? Was Elliot back for a second? And then I went, wow, because that's not something I would have envisaged really from Yuli-Kuku, especially at the start of his Dundalk career. But that ball comes in, the defender's about to step out to it, but he kind of runs across the defender, takes a touch around the defender. They're suddenly on the back foot, and he's one-on-one with Talbot for it, and it's a great finish past him as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the other thing about it is that you're talking about a player that came in for criticism earlier on this year. I remember actually somebody openly screaming at O'Donnell to take him off, and O'Donnell having to turn around and have a go at him. And this is Conor Malley.
Yeah.
And Conor Malley has been excellent in the last 3 to 4 games as well. And he was the one that set up Yuli-Kuku with a header. It was it was very, very well slided. But Yuli-Kuku has scored against Bohemians already this season in Dalymount Park. I know it was a consolation goal, but still he took it very, very well. But we must remember that he scored a really big goal against Derry City as well. That it was his alertness to just that little kind of bit of a chink in an armour that he was able to exploit. And he did the exact same last night. He knew that the defender was flat-footed. He knew the communication wasn't there, and he just ran in and slotted it past James Talbot. And if I'm going to be critical of James Talbot, you shouldn't be conceding at your near post. Irrespective of what's happening, you had it covered. And for him to concede at his near post is, for a goalkeeper of his experience, that's something that now it was great for us, but for him, it wasn't exactly something that he'd want to put in his highlight reel.
Yeah, I think in defense of the goalkeepers, as I always will do, I think he's yelling obviously at the defender. You step into the ball. The defender literally waits for that. When Paul Doyle cuts the ball in, the defender waits for the ball to come to him, but Yuli-Kuku runs towards the ball, angles his run across. So as he takes the touch, he's past that defender. And I think, if I was the keeper there, I'd be raging that I'm not set for that player coming around that way. I'm set for, if that ball was coming in as a cross, then I'm going to step out and I'm going to be able to take that. As my defenders, I'm going to stop that wall before it gets to me. And the defender is completely statuesque as that ball comes in. Suddenly Yuli-Kuku has half a yard past him, and he's one-on-one at that stage. It's for as a defender, that's you've
also
really put yourself in the wrong.
If I can just, this was something that was brought up in the commentary last night. Like, Christian Nowak and Kasper Radikowski both don't speak English as their mother tongue. So now I'm just hold on before everybody jumps down my throat like I cancelled. Like, I'm led to believe that James Talbot has had to learn certain Polish phrases in order to communicate. But I'm led to believe their English is very, very good. That's not it. But sometimes when you're trying to decipher those split seconds, and Yili Coco was just able to exploit it. But listen, all better for us. I think it shows his intelligence, and we have to remember he's 6 months into adult football. I don't think he's had, necessarily first team appearances for Helsinki. So, I mean, he's starting to grow in stature, but this formation, as you said, is starting to suit his style of play. It's given him a little bit of a, not necessarily a free role, but he's able to express himself a little bit more instead of kind of a very structured side. And I think that that's benefiting him.
Yeah, I think the freedom of higher up the pitch seems to have benefited him. I think at times we played him as a much deeper midfielder, and I think maybe the expectations of that position, like we've seen him as a deep lying midfielder and receiving ball from our defence at times this season. And when we think back at players like Chris Shields and that, who's done that role before, he's not in that same mold, which is always unfair of many players in this league, let's be fair. But now when we're seeing him further up the field, we see a far more expressive player. And I think that's kind of suiting his role and the way he plays a whole lot more. From getting ourselves back into the game, Kieran, suddenly we were able to also pull forward. And another player who we're seeing get better and better, it seems, in this league. The two of them, I would say, probably linked up perfectly, and that's Archie Davis, which is arguably being our player of the season, and Conor Malley with a real pinpoint header. That was just a beautiful little passage of play. And the thing I liked it most was initially when that free kick is given up, Bows are still arguing with the ref and not fully settled. We just go and play our football.
Yeah, exactly.
And when the ball comes out to Archie Davis, he's time to set up. Look, Malley makes the run and he's able to just drop it right on his sixpence, right on his head, and we're in the lead. Like we've seen other teams take advantage of Dundalk at times like that. So it was great to be able to do it to somebody else, wasn't it?
Absolutely. But a couple of weeks ago when we played St. Pat's, a very similar opportunity happened for Conor Malley, only for an absolutely brilliant save from the Pats goalkeeper. This time he got the better of it, but it shows that this run and these these deep runs that are coming in, very similar to a certain Shamrock Rovers player that used to play for Dundalk, where he used to make those deep runs from midfield. Connor's now starting to do that because he's given the freedom, because he knows the players around him. But Archie Davies is just... I ran out of words of how much of an improvement he has had over the past couple of weeks. Once again, it's going down to this fact that he and the side are now playing in a formation that suits the talents of the players and stuff like that. But Archie's runs, his crossing ability, I think also, dare I say it, he's very akin to Sean Gannon, but he's a little bit more aggressive than him. Like there's a wee bit more of a bite to him, which I think will help an awful lot, because as a defender he's going to need that. Not saying that Sean Gannon wasn't a good defensive, but you understand where I'm coming. They're different types of players. There's similarities, but there's kind of something a little bit added extra to Archie. And I saw it last night. There was immediate concerns of what year of his contract is he on? We need to sign him up. We need to extend him. And somebody said he's on 2 years. It's fine. Because people are immediately kind of concerned about these things. But he's definitely, once again, there was, I think Brian Gartland was speaking about it, that if they were signing players for the sake of it, they wouldn't have gotten Archie Davies. Archie Davies was kind of a late signing, if I'm not mistaken. And because of that, sometimes we're as fans and supporters and journalists and everything, we can be a little bit impatient. Like we were talking about, there's no commute. There's like, I know I said this last week, but there was like the July transfer window opened and there was a flurry of signings, and then all of it, so everyone's like, oh, there's nothing coming for Dundalk. And then all of a sudden incoming gift comes up and people start going, like, I think we have to trust what Stephen, Brian, and the rest of the senior management are doing at the moment, and let them do the signings. Whatever else is going on behind the scenes, that's for another discussion for another day. But at this moment in time, I think patience is something. They're trying to get the right player and the right character in, and that might just take a little bit more time than we would have wanted.
Yeah. And looking, if it's the caliber of players of Archie Davis that we're able to attract, look, I think we all have to have that patience, like you say. And the other thing with the Mali goal, Kieran, we've bemoaned Dundalk players just timing runs perfectly and arriving in box just as balls come in. But that was like everything was timed perfectly. The run is timed perfectly, cross is timed perfectly, finishes. It's fabulous. It's nice to see that executed because I'm sure that's something, nearly every team will do anyway, just working the ball out wide, crossing it in training. So I'm sure Skip was just absolutely delighted. It's one of those things you're able to work on.
It's something that we saw kind of, how would you say, it was something that we saw kind of late on in the career of Sean Murray at Dundalk. He had this kind of, he got into this knack of headed goals from deep lying crosses. And listen, they're very hard to defend because you're looking at three different phases, really. You're looking at three different aspects of the game. You're looking at the cross, first of all, where is it going to land? You're looking at the runner, and you're also looking at the secondary ball. Is there somebody coming in case he misses it? So they're very hard to defend, and I think that that's something that obviously the Dundalk have been working on because, we bemoan about not scoring enough from set pieces and not scoring enough from. But if we're able to score from those kind of open play phases where Archie or whoever's on the left, be it Robbie McCourt, because he seems to have a very good delivery, or from Dara Leahy, then that's going to open up things for us. And we can't always, as much as we love it, we can't always be relying on Pat. So it's good that there's goals coming from other areas, which is very, very important. And that's something that was always kind of a concept of this Dundalk team from 2013 up to 2020, that goals came from anywhere. Yeah. And that's something that we need to get back into. Now, look, I love Pat scoring. Everybody knows that. But it's just important that we have other options because we can't be completely toothless.
Yeah. So we're going halftime on the league here, and we're probably happier that our performance and obviously the scoreline probably has us in a better position. Started second half, the game kind of got a little messy. It got a little frustrating. We seen Afolabi, really have to go with the referee. Him and Muller had it coming together. Receives his yellow card, but it's scrappy for at least the first 15 minutes of that second half, isn't it?
Absolutely. And there was, I don't know whether it was in the opening periods as well, but I think there was a call that it looked like there was contact with Pat Hoban in the box as well, which could have resulted in a penalty, but there wasn't that much protest about it. I think there was more protest from the supporters and the players. So, Greg Sloggett got a yellow card earlier on. I think there was frustrations over that because there was a little bit of, I said this off air, but I like using the word, a bit of necessary roughness, because you know what I mean? These are tightly contested games, and I think the referee, to his credit, he let certain challenges go whereas another referee might have been a bit stop-start. However, it got to a point where he kind of had to start, putting out the cautions because of the fact that there was kind of heavy challenges going in. Greg got a yellow card, and then Afolabi got a little bit frustrated. There seemed to have been a situation with himself and Hayden Muller, and then he just, out of pure frustration, goes in with a very heavy challenge, and he gets a yellow card. Like on another night, if the referee was, you could see these being given as red. Like, that's just being honest with you. It would have killed the game as a contest. It would have been very, very harsh, but we've seen them given. And I think, it was that kind of period where there was tackles flying in. Nobody could seem to get their foot in the ball. No one could seem to settle. And it frustrated both sides because they would have had their plans of how they were going to approach the second half, and it all kind of went out the window. But then I think Dundalk did kind of get a little bit of a foothold in the game. They looked to be in control, managing it very well. There was very little in terms of real opportunities, if I'm going to be honest. And then Bohemians seemed to turn the screw around the 75th minute when they introduced a couple of changes coming up to the 70th minute. And those players kind of really did change the course of the game.
Yeah, so there's a real sliding doors moment, I think, at that time, Kieran. Like you say, there's the double substitution by
O'Sullivan
and Twardek, and O'Sullivan come in. Yeah, and even just before that, I think Clark had come on for Dylan Connolly as well, and kind of change how they were looking. But also, we just had that little break in play from Nathan Shepherd's injury. they kind of halted play for a
now,
while there.
if I can go speak about
Yeah.
this, that was a glorious opportunity for Declan McDaid to score to equalise there. Only for Nathan Shepherd and Hayden Muller. Now, to this second and to this day, I do not know how Hayden Muller kept that out. It was as if he tackled to block the ball. He clashed with Nathan Shepherd, was still aware that the ball was still in play, and hooked it off the line with his foot.
Yeah.
Like it was just one of those incredible kind of defensive moments. So when we were talking about praising the defense here, like Hayden Muller was absolutely outstanding for his awareness at that moment. But I think we also have to praise Nathan Shepherd as well, because he's still extremely brave in everything that he does. And, he really put his body and his head on the line on this one. Like, it could have resulted in a Peter Cherry did have to warm up because there was concerns over him. But in order for them to block that certain goal through intelligence, through very good defensive mind and putting their bodies in the line, they certainly did that. And they should be very much praised for it.
Yeah. I suppose then
here we go.
This is it. And like I did see, Flano thrown in a comment earlier on, and although saying, we had some good passenger play, can't think of a genuine chances really in the second half, bar that one probably that came at the 90th minute. I think he's right. I think that's part of the problem. We probably let Bowes dictate how things went in the second half of this. Like, all of a sudden we see Afolabi kind of like he is high on that line for the whole second half, and we'll come to his goal at the end. But the equalizer, there's just elements of the first goal we conceded all over this. There's chances, and it also reminded me of Pat's winner in Chicor only a few weeks. The ball travels right the way across the box, and there's a player just timing a run at a back post, and that's what goes in again. We're seeing similar goals we're conceding throughout this season over and over again. We obviously have a weak underbelly somewhere in this team that other managers are finding a way to exploit.
It's Chris Twardock come on and he just added that little bit of injection and pace. But look, we know Dylan Connolly. We know what he's like. We know him as a player. He's kind of very linear. He's very direct in his place. Whereas that, Chris Twardock is able to kind of bob and weave and cut in, which is something a little bit different. Now, if you were to combine Connolly's pace with Twardock's skill, you'd have an extremely proficient winger. But Twardock was able to cut in. Once again, the players were drawn towards the ball to try and block the cross. It resulted in it going across the box. That resulted in John O'Sullivan sliding it home from close range. But at the same time, it shouldn't have made it that far. It should have been cut out as the cross was coming in. And that's something, I'm not saying the players aren't taking responsibility, but what I'm saying is that they need to kind of be very much drawn to the, very similar to how, we spoke about the cross from Archie Davies earlier on, where there's 3 to 4 parts of that kind of attacking play, and we're constantly intelligent enough to, not saying the players aren't intelligent, but we weren't aware enough to look at all the different parts, so to speak. And I know this is easier. Look, if we were all managers, we'd all be Mourinho. You know what I mean? So
I think this is what Skip will come back and say to them, though. Like, if we take the initial cross coming in, then the ball that comes in, and should we just put that out for a corner and we regroup again? Just put the ball out of play. We try to clear our lines, but it's a soft clearance, so it falls back to another Bowes player. That ball travels right the way across the box, and there's a player at the back. So no one's followed this player here. No one's been aware of the ball here. Like, I just think we've got to have a better awareness of situations like this, because we manage that right. Bowes probably get far more frustrated. We see the substitute that comes in kind of after that with O'Kane and Martin coming in. We might have got more of a stronghold back in this game and been able to play a smarter game, but we allow Bowes back in. Suddenly their tails are up, and they're dictating pretty much the rest of this game, how it goes. And we have as much as we praised last week that we controlled that 3-minute spell, Bowes done the exact same to us here. Shell-shocked us with the equalizer. We were probably very disappointed it was in our case, like you just mentioned, it's a very defendable goal, but we somehow managed to gift up that chance at the back post again. And then while we're probably still thinking about that, we're pressing ahead, trying to get ourselves back in this game with the substitutes, and Afolabi, who's been the thorn in our in our boots, this whole match goes and is, you know, I've seen it back, you know, maybe 3 times. I'm still struggling to see if he's definitely onside for this or not. It's a close call.
It's a very close call. It's 50-50, but you know, people have spoken how, and a lot of times the advantage is never given to the striker. I think in this instance it was. Look, he took it very, very well because he had, you know, Nathan Shepherd on rushing towards him, you know, trying to close the gap and the opportunity down. He did it very well. I just think that it was one of those defense splitting passes that happens in games, and it's heartbreaking because Dundalk were, I think John is right. There wasn't a chance of note really in the second half, but we were controlling certain phases of play. I'm not over. I don't think I'm over exaggerating that, but I was just very frustrated at the fact that we were just cut open so easily. And one of the comments that came from the commentary team was that he said that Dundalk looked tired. You know, that was something that he said they were kind of, you know, they looked kind of out in their feet, and Bowes just had that little inch of pace. But once again, you're talking about players, Hayden Muller and Louis Annecy, who this is their first season in senior football. Once again, this is something they're going to learn from. You know, they have to be more alert to these kind of passes and put through. So it's just something that, you know, we'll regroup and we'll look at again. Hopefully the team does as well, and they learn from it.
Yeah, and I think to go on your point there, you know, Declan Flynn's point there as well. You know, we're probably a very light physical team. That probably goes back to how young some of these lads are. You know, when you're going up against a player like Afolabi, you know, he's very physical. He's going to push his way in. He knows how to lean on the defender and that to use his physicality to benefit himself and his team. And, you know, that's, like I say, these are probably the teething issues you get from lack of a lot of first team experience, I suppose. For these, look, we've come from a position where we're leading. Well, we were behind. We're leading a game. We're probably comfortable in the first half to not a whole lot going on, gifting up some chances here, getting ourselves behind in the game, and then probably the only real chance of note. So, you know, Patrick Hoopin has a strike. It's spilled by Talbot. I'd said to you earlier, I'm still not too sure what happened with John Martin's header. I've watched it back. I don't know how many times. I still can't figure it out. How did we not equalise, Kieran?
I think the best way to describe it is that this is going to come across as really very simple. The bounce of the ball didn't go the way we wanted. Usually when the ball is bounced, it's bounced at an angle. I think the ball just literally bounced up. And Talbot was able to recover it. Now, whether the contact wasn't the best, I don't know. I can't speak. I'm not John Martin. But it's one of those kind of moments where you sit there and go, how did that not go in? And it's just so frustrating because I would have felt, on the grand scheme of things, the way the game went, a point would have been a fair result. But I still wouldn't begrudge Bohemians their victory. It was one of those, a Bowes fan who I know very well said it was just a crazy game, and that's exactly what it was. It could have gone either way. But you're gonna look back at that moment and you're gonna sit there and say to yourself, like, how did that not go in, and how important that point could have been for us come the end of the season. Pat Hoban got a yellow card in the aftermath of that. I don't know whether he said something to the referee or he was frustrated at something. Maybe he was claiming that there could have been contact or whatever. I don't know. But at the end of it, unfortunately, it just stayed out. But you know, if you're down the other end and you're winning 3-2 and you see that happen, you're counting your lucky stars and thanking St. Anthony and everybody else for keeping the ball out and across the line.
Yeah, look, I'm weary to get in. Like, I seen, you know, a lot of people kind of saying, you know, that the referee linesman was a bit shocking tonight. Frank Carlin come in because kind of saying that, you know, need to talk about the officials somehow and start looking at a review for it. But I think when we look at the chances, maybe the Afolabi, we said it's kind of 50-50, Kieran, but definitely their first 2 goals, they're very defendable from our point of view. And I would be, I don't want to go down the route of bashing into referees when I think we can do a whole lot better as a team to stop these goals going in. Like I said, what I would say, Bo's first 2 goals this year is just very typical Dundalk to concede those type of goals. Yeah. We've seen that just over and over again against, and that's what we just got to get smarter at. Previous to this, even last year, I think when you're looking at Boyle and Connolly in defence, you're talking acres of experience in there between the two. Before that, you're looking Boyle, Garts, the same. Lads who just know how to play this game. They know when Bows are trying their best to control a game, the key is not to let them do that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just need to put your foot on the ball and just knock it out of play or clear it as far as we can. Don't, if you're not going to get a touch on this, to allow it to go back into play, we got to just absolutely clear this ball and reset our lines, reset where we are as a team, and take a breath on this. And I think that seems to be, we kind of get caught into this little situation where sometimes we let the opposition dictate how we're being played against. And then when we make a mistake, we're slightly on the back foot and we get punished for it over and over again. And I think that just seems to be a common thread this year. So I don't want to go down the route of saying the referees have allowed things to happen and that's why we lost tonight. I think we as a team, allowed Bows to get in. Like I said, it was probably could a draw been a fair result, possibly. I think then how much Bows controlled the second half, the fact that they won, was that fair? Possibly also. So I think that, something could be said there. So either way, that's things that we've got to affect. We can't affect what the referee does. We can't affect what the linesman sees. We can affect is how we play and how we defend, and we need to do those better at times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there just has to be a little bit more awareness of how teams are going to look. It's very evident now that there is something that teams have caught on that they want to exploit. We've seen it with Pats, we've seen it with Bows, we've seen it with other teams, that they seem to think that if they stretch the back line, it's going to draw people in because they want to recover the ball and play the ball out. That seems to be where they're saying that if we do this is what's going to happen. It's something that Dundalk probably will need to work on just that little bit more. I think, how do I say this? Like the Pats game is a very kind of, how would you say, is a good example of this. Like the I forget what the player's name that scored for St. Pat's that night, but he had acres of space from the cross. Yeah, like that was because players were drawn out to the person delivering the ball as opposed to looking around them. So it's these kind of things that we just need to work on now. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get into a discussion about referees. It's very easy to. I'm probably sitting on the fence a wee bit here, but it is very easy to point, at everybody else when there's glaring aspects to our phases of play that we need to work on as a team. Yeah. So, if it was a case that like last week we were very physical, were we complaining then? I don't think we were. Bows were overly physical this week, and we're complaining now. So you're going to go up against teams that are going to be physical, and that's just the way it is now. In saying that, there were a couple of times where I was kind of baying at the TV going, ref, come on now. Like,
of course,
you do that, but that's part of...
You've got to look after your own house first, though, haven't you, Kieran?
Yeah, you're going to get some, I'm going to just say for argument, I'm going to throw this out. I just before I left to come over here this week, I was with the senior ladies team of the GA club, the Geraldines that I was with, and at one stage, the referee was giving us every 50-50 going. We never complained. We never said a word. And one of the opposition players came to me after the game and was like, he gave you everything because you didn't argue with them. Yeah. It might be that you might need to look at that. Does Pat only speak to the referee? Does, this kind of surrounding and doing this, it doesn't help. Like, you're going to get your backs up, but
of course.
That's just the way it is. It's better communication, but then from the way the newspaper articles is there honest communication coming from the referees? So it has to work both ways. Yeah.
Just to touch on Anne's point there, I think we've seen, and not that it's a tactic that Stephen uses sometimes, but we've seen substitutes come in and probably have a massive impact. And if John Martin scores, that equaliser, we're probably saying it's another masterstroke of a decision from the skip to bring in the substitutes. But it's just didn't work. It just didn't work. And I think, we're talking about Daniel Kenny maybe looking a little tired. Maybe there was a few players, like you said, looking a little bit tired or whatever, kind of going into that. I don't know.
If I can just look at the Bohemian substitute times compared to the I'm gonna just put my laptop in front of me if that's okay. Like Dylan Connolly and James Clark, that was at 61 minutes. Adam O'Donnell and John O'Sullivan at 68, and Declan McDigg and Chris Dordick at 68. Then John Martin was brought on 70, but Ryan O'Kane and Alfie Lewis weren't brought on till the 83rd and 84th minute, respectively. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily them coming on. It's coming on at a time where they can make a meaningful impact. The difference between having maybe a 20-minute window as opposed to a 7-minute window is now. Listen, I'm not Stephen O'Donnell. He sees a lot more on the pitch than I would. But if you're looking to impact a game, maybe, like, I'm not saying that we dump the bench on 70 minutes. I'm not saying that you make the triple substitute. I'm not saying that at all. But is it something that maybe needs to be discussed as well? That are the changes coming a little bit later than expected? Maybe so. Can these players make an impact in such a short space of time? We don't know. So it may just be something that we need to, look, it's not for me to discuss it, maybe to say it, but it's just something that they might have to look into, that if they're looking for players to make an impact, they might need to come on their set a little bit earlier.
Yeah. And look, I think Anne's just come back in there, just agreeing with you on that, that it was just way too late to make a difference within the game. Kieran, I think the other real disappointing thing of last night is when we look around other results in the league. This was a real chance to consolidate where we were in the division. We obviously we would have been keeping Bows behind us, which it would have been half the battle, but just to really have just taken that and consolidating maybe the top 4 position for ourselves going into this European break would have been brilliant as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Pats dropping points. Yeah. Rovers dropping points.
Like this is the big thing about all of this. Like we spoke at the beginning of the show. It's so inconsistent this year, and it's exciting for everyone because one minute you're like floating up and the next minute you're floating down, and it's great and all that. But I think in reality, it's more than likely Shamrock Rovers are going to get that illustrious four in a row, and congratulations to them. But in reality, could we have been, we could have been in a very, very healthy position to see this morning or this afternoon coming into this game, where we could have been sitting there saying to ourselves, God, we're really in a strong position for those European spots, because Europe at the end of the day is our target, irrespective of cup runs and everything like that. Europe it's a necessary target for a lot of reasons. It attracts good players. It attracts better sponsors. It attracts more advertising revenue. It has such a massive snowball effect. And the only gripe and issue that I have with the fact that the change in the European spots and allocations is that there isn't an Irish team in the Europa League. I know that it's now Champions League and then Conference League. I think that just devalues things a little bit. It really should be a case that first, obviously, get your Champions League spot. Second, should be allowed to go into the Europa League, and then the other 1 to 2 go into the Europa Conference League. That's just my personal opinion. I understand it's got to do with coefficients and seedings and everything like that, but I just think it devalues our league position an awful lot. But the fact that we still have a situation in which the top 4 teams technically in the league every year, owing to cup results, can qualify for Europe is massive for us. But it's huge for clubs in general. I know there's been a statement released by the Premier Division Alliance that came out this morning, and they've been very, they've been praised about the plan that the FAI has in relation to stadia, in relation to investment. But they're still saying that there's still an awful lot more work to do. And I think that that's right, but one of the key things that Dundalk have to do now is that if they want to, really consolidate and be able to attract players that Stephen wants, that the board wants, that we want as supporters, you have to qualify for Europe. And last night's results could have had a huge bearing on that. But we're still, the way this league is going, we could end up in second, we can end up in third, we can end up in eighth. It doesn't matter. But the fact still remains is that we just need to get a consistent run for the last 10 to 12 games, and who knows where it will take us.
Yeah. And look, I think that's really it. It's just when we presented with opportunities like last night, I think we've just got to really take advantage of that, and especially with, I suppose, Europe just around the corner here for us. Next week we're going to be all heading out or glued to TV screens or whatever anywhere to be able to watch this. So I think that's just the other.
I'm taking the bet. Somebody has described my trip as planes, trains, and automobiles, and they're not far wrong. It is like a magical mystery tour to get to Gibraltar, but like, you wouldn't change it for the world. I know it's been said on the Town End podcast, or not the press box. Like, it's such a magical time of year. Like, it's like mini Christmas for all of us. We get to go to a foreign country and see our team play, and it's the most random of places. Like, when would you ever get to say, apart from Ireland playing there, when would you actually get to say, "Oh, I'm going to Gibraltar"? Like,
exactly.
It's the same with Ireland, Belarus, all these, St. Petersburg, all these random places that you would have ended up never going, but you get to do this because of the European football, and it's brilliant. And I also think that it brings fans together a lot closer. And I think that this is a great opportunity because this is our first kind of real big European game post-COVID. And I think that has kind of a more special bearing on it, because I know there was people in Tallinn, and and I know that some, I don't know if some got to go to Vitesse. I'm not aware. I don't know.
Snuck in again,
Snuck in again. But like, this is the first time where, in reality, really, we get to go and we get to see our team in Europe again, and it's very special. I know, like, I've heard travel arrangements from so many people, like Malaga is just going to be the town next week by the sounds of things, and then La Linea. So it's real special. But Europe is a great time of year, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, look, it's just unfortunate, Kieran, that we weren't able to carry our recent run, our domestic run, into that European thing. But I think it's also highlighted a few issues. So hopefully there's no naivety going into this as well, because in European games you have to be on your game at all the times. And maybe Skip might take this as a little wake up call, saying just because you beat Rovers and we had this unbeaten run before the Bows match doesn't count for anything now. Reset, go again. Let's not give up these sort of chances and be bullied out of games like we were at Bohemians. I think that's probably a key thing for him. And the most important thing is to have that tie alive coming back here in 2 weeks' time, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, for every bad hit bar stuff, there's a TNS. Like, and Stephen O'Donnell would have been part of that whole situation. Or he might have been gone, where Bows went over to Wales thinking that they had the tie sorted, and then TNS turned them over, and there was massive repercussions on a financial perspective of them being knocked out at that stage. So I think progression to the next round, where, if I'm led to believe, there's a possibility that game could be played in Reykjavik as opposed to the home ground. So that might be easier for Dundalk fans to travel to. But progression through this first round, look, you can't take any side lightly. They're there on merit. They're not there because they just here we are, we've turned up. It's these games are competitive for a reason, and let's just hope that we go into the second half of the second tie of this game in a very, very good position. But I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but we played Je ne sais Esch. Richie Tell scored 2 goals in the second half, and we came back and we bet them 3-0, if I'm not mistaken, at home. Brian Gartland scored, John Mountney, and I think Darren Meenan, I might be wrong on that. It was the most subdued European match that I was ever at. When you compare it to the Hajduk Split game, then a week and a half later, it was completely chalk and cheese. But that's something that we kind of have to be aware of, that, we have to be fully behind. Like, even if we are a goal or two up from this tie, pray this everybody, that we don't take it as a formality when they come back to Oriel Park, because they might be free of the shackles of and they're going to just see it as a free shot and go for it. We have to really make Oriel Park the intimidating place that it was 2 weeks ago. And I'm not going to get into the politics of the situation, but seeing a lot of fans standing behind the goal that I saw at Shamrock Rovers there 2 weeks ago, that made the place look more full, and it made the place look more kind of intimidating a little bit. And that might be something that that the 1903 or the Shedside Army or whoever might look into, that there might be an additional, I'm not saying 2 singing sections, but you could necessarily have 2 kind of groups at different parts of the stadium that could make it look more full, make it look more intimidating, and therefore really make it impressive. But I'm not necessarily sure if, like in past European games, are they going to allow people behind the goals on that hill?
Possibly that's all seated, isn't it?
So if that's the case, then we might need to look at how many Gibraltar fans are coming. Could they be accommodated in the stand? And we have that away end as another section. So that it's just to make the place full, intimidating, and really a raucous European atmosphere.
Yeah. Look, and I think that'd be ideal, and to have some sort of result coming home would definitely probably add to that too, and that's the key thing. Look, we'll probably leave it at that, Kieran. Thank you so much for jumping in. I know you're overseas again, yet you're still dedicated to the cause. Always appreciate that. Look, we'll put aside the disappointment, I suppose, of the Bohs result, and we look with optimism towards the Gibraltar game here against Bruno's Magpies during the week. And of course, we'll be back straight after that, with probably back at our usual time, I would like to think. I don't know what to do with these Saturday mornings doing this. This is throwing my whole day out. So thank you, Kieran. Thanks everyone who did comment in there this morning. Thanks everyone who watch and listen back too. I suppose until Thursday, come on to town.
Come on to town.